Hey guys, Eric Bischoff here to talk to you about my friends over at SaveWithConrad.com. Are you looking to get out of debt? Conrad and his team can make that happen faster than me firing the honky tonk man. Wow. And you know that controversy creates cash, right? But you know what doesn't create cash? Credit card debt. Save with Conrad can help you consolidate high-interest credit cards and all of your other debt into one low monthly payment. They can even help you get the cash you need for home improvements or anything else. They've helped 83 Weeks listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month. Seriously, your papers are going to go down faster than Nitro ratings in 2000. Ouch! And how about this? No house payments for 2 months. That's right, no house payments for 2 months. And unlike the dirt sheets, man, the reviews do not lie. With over 1,000 5-star reviews, find out for yourself how much Conrad and his team can save you by checking out SaveWithConrad.com today. You'll be grateful you did.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Foley Is Pod. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the hardcore legend himself, Mr. Mick Foley. Mick, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. Was woken out of a dead sleep about 6 minutes ago, but I'm getting in there, getting to the zone. Should be ready.
Well, I'm excited to be back with you. We are now doing our monthly format. You can expect brand new content each and every month here on Foley Is Pod. And we'll have some little surprises here and there. And speaking of surprises, boy, did we have a big one. We just saw something you and I have talked about and teased for a bit and said, boy, it sure would be nice if one day, and now it's real, the 3 Faces of Foley action figure coming at you. I think it was announced out at the San Diego Comic-Con. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do. And I was in attendance when it was announced.
Man, how excited are you? The 3 Faces of Foley. This has been a dream of yours for a long time. Take a look at that. Mankind, Cactus Jack, and Dude Love. That might be one of the coolest Cactus Jack action figures yet, right?
I think it's the coolest because it's the first WCW era Cactus Jack. So I'm really happy with it. I'll argue that the WCW version was a little better than the WWE version. Nothing against the WWE version, but the 92 Cactus, on which that figure is based, he had that hunger, and I think that was specific. My wife specifically made that attire for me, not the tights, but the shirt. She made the attire for that match against Sting at Beach Blast. So I think that's what they're taking their call from. And a couple interesting notes. It'll be the first cat, because it's WCW era Cactus Jack. The ear was still intact. I lost that in '94. And I didn't have the prominent scars, which I got in either 95 or January 96. So it's, and I think it looks great. I really like the hair. Love the lifelike deltoid and biceps that come along with it. I was really a stickler on those, on them taking a form of my own bicep. But I'm really happy with it. What's funny, Conrad, is I reached out to you, and we have a very free-form show here, right? I usually don't even look at what you guys send me because I want it to have the most legit feeling. But in this case, I was like, man, the press conference or the panel at SummerSlam, not SummerSlam. Sorry, still waking up, in San Diego at San Diego Comic-Con, had me very happy, but saying something that would make headlines. And then that's going to bring us to the other thing. I said, hey, can we just talk about these two things? So we do have a very free-flowing format, but occasionally I like to talk about things. And in this case, it was I did that. I threatened to quit, not to sign my. That's the next one. That's the next headline there. But I threatened not to sign my another Legends deal, and I even said a line about I drew a line in the sand and told my manager. So it's like you and I both know that I was serious about going elsewhere, or making my own if WWE could not guarantee that this is something they were going to do. Oh, look, your life, you're not life, but your shelf life can be short. I'll always do okay, I think, but I mean these action figures are really helping me have some good weekends as I travel the country and the world. And I was like, I can't, I don't need a three faces set when I'm 65. I won't be signing anymore. Like I need it this year. And so I drew the line in the sand 8 months away by telling my manager. So it wasn't not real dramatic as far as lines in the sand go. But you would know better than anybody that I really wanted that 3-pack, and that we were discussing leads about where to go if WWE couldn't do it. But this is the best case scenario where I never did have to. We did not even have to even enter into any kind of negotiation because boom, the 3 figures are done. Or they're coming, they're on their way. I'm really happy, and there is no need for any lines in the sand 6 or 8 months from now.
I got to tell you, I love the look of all 3 figures. I think the Dude Love figure is fantastic. I mean, what a cool figure that is. But my favorite by far is the Cactus Jack one. And I didn't really put together what you said, but you nailed it. That's the WCW version, and that is my favorite version of the Cactus Jack character. And I can't help but wonder when you talked about that top being one that Mrs. Foley helped make. Did she make that with a little help from our friends at Lane Bryant?
Not that one. I don't think that. I don't. Oh man, that's a good question. No, I think she made that one from scratch. I really do.
Well, we got to talk about something else that seemingly is from scratch. Some of these headlines that have popped up in response to our podcast. We love our wrestling media and all the coverage and support we get there, so we greatly appreciate that. But occasionally, it does feel like, whether intentional or not, it feels a little clickbaity at times. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And now I know a little something about writing articles because I've written and submitted articles, had some stuff printed. And if the wrestling media follows suit with the rest of the world's media or just our country's media, the author's in charge of everything except the headline. So, the powers that be, the editors, you fight for things you want to keep. At least this is my thing. Some people might say, fine, change it all. Of course, there are, celebrities who don't do their own writing, and even in articles, and then they don't really have the care about what the content is. But in my history, you kind of, you scrap and argue a little bit with your editor over things you think should stay and things you hate to see leave, things you agree leave, things you agree should leave, but then you do not get to pick your own headline. So in this case, we had talked about my push, kind of fizzling out at WCW after the big match with Leon White, Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal, Halloween Havoc, 93. And I found myself just as an extra on house shows with no real direction. And meanwhile, my wife was having a difficult pregnancy and she had to be, in bed most of the day. So I had asked EB, Eric Bischoff, it was clear that I was trying to renegotiate a contract, and he said they just didn't have any, they couldn't do it, which is kind of writing on the wall because, a year earlier when I had my contract stay the same with Bill Watts, that was considered a major win. But now entering the third year of my contract to not get any kind of bump up when other people were was a little bit of writing on the wall. But I asked Eric if I could, all right, okay, I can't make, I understand the contract, it has to stay where it is, but could I possibly spend some time at home with, and he knew my wife, and we knew the Bischoffs, I could possibly spend some time at home before this is 6 weeks leading up to my wife's delivery. And he said, Cactus, like, we just gave you the time off for that, the knee angle. And I was like, Eric, you've got me teaming up with Ice, what's the Ice Train at house shows. Like, you don't really need me. And he granted me the time off. But the thing is, if you want to pop up the article, that I saw the front of the article, the way it came out is Mick Foley had to argue with Eric Bischoff in WCW to be at the birth of daughter Noelle. It's like, no, that's absolutely not true. And it's not written that way in the article, but someone made the decision that was a catchier headline, even though it wasn't true. I never had to argue with Eric Bischoff to be at the birth of my daughter. I had to argue to be there 6 weeks before, which is a huge difference, right? And so I was a little disappointed because I knew that's not what we said. And I was disappointed because that's not what the article said. But like you said, it's got that clickbaity feel where, yes, that headline is going to get more looks. But in the same way that when I go on YouTube and I see, look at what the Partridge Family looks like now, and Susan Day appears to be 700 pounds, which she's not. It's like there's no truth in her even being slightly overweight. But that's what people, I want us as a wrestling media, as part of the wrestling family, to do better than that. And I think we do have enough crazy headlines that are legit strange and unusual that we don't need to create our own headlines to drive traffic. That's my ask for people out there in charge, not the guys doing the stories, because they're doing a really good job. And I'm always fascinated by how much time people spend writing about what we do, usually for very little compensation. But this is to the people at the top. Just don't fall under that pressure to create a headline that is misleading or untrue.
Well, what is true is you are on the road. I assume that's not what I'm looking at. Is your bedroom at the Foley
hotel? Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, where are you at? What are you doing? What's going on with you today?
GalaxyCon. I held off for 7-8 weeks while my son is up in the White Mountains doing a spectacular job, really growing and maturing before my eyes. Just this full-time job at Clark's Bears in Lincoln, New Hampshire has just been really good for him. So prior to this, I've been driving 2 hours to Portland, Maine, and I drove the 2 hours for my Cell anniversary show to Burlington, Vermont. So I've been doing 3-hour trips. But in this case, I brought Mrs. Foley, as in my wife Colette came up to relieve me so I could come out here and hopefully have a really successful convention. GalaxyCon is one of the best ones in the country, so I'm doing all 4 days today, which is I don't know when you guys will post this.
Tomorrow.
We're recording. That doesn't ruin the magic, does it? If people know that recorded it 1 day earlier. I'll be here through Sunday, and then if they go to my website, realmickfoley.com, you can see that I will also be going to Planet Funk in Davenport, Iowa, home of Seth Rollins, and now Becky Lynch. I'll be doing that the 25th and 26th of August, and then going to Austin, Texas for another GalaxyCon at the beginning of September. So hope to see you there.
Well, I'm excited that you're here today. We're going to be picking up where we left off. Of course, our most recent episode was celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Hell in a Cell. Was that episode all you hoped for? I mean, my goodness, the 25th anniversary, a quarter century in the rearview mirror. People are still talking about that match. It feels like the legend of that match will never die, man. That's an all-timer.
I think 5 years from now, people are going to be interested all over again, and they'll be interested in some way, shape, or form. Like, we know that in one of these World Cup games, some team will go up 4-0, and there'll be memes on social media with JR saying, "Would somebody stop the damn match?" It is a big part of our culture here, our wrestling fans, and even beyond. It's part of pop culture, and I think 5 years from now we'll probably be talking about it again.
Well, we're going to be talking about the fallout from that. You wrote in your book that you prided yourself on how little pain medication you would take through your career. I mean, you even talked about after you had knee surgery, you only took one pain pill in 4 days.
Yeah.
Well, on the fallout from this one, you write that you had been taking so much you were in a stupor for 2 days. This is uncharted territory for you, no?
I was pretty loaded up, and by loaded up, I meant I took it as prescribed.
Right.
Like one every 4 hours. Yeah, I was in a lot of pain coming out of that. Even when Vince had the kindness to send me home to convalesce for 4 days. Yeah, I mean, for a guy who had hardly ever taken medication to be taking it as prescribed did have me in a stupor for a few days.
You mentioned that when you get to TV the next day, Francois worked on you for hours. Talk to us about it. What was that like?
Man, Francois was, he was unique. And when I say unique, I mean that in a good way. And I think we may have even talked about Francois, because had Bruce told you his technique? You weren't on a table.
You're on the ground and he walks up the wall, right?
Yeah, you're on the ground and he's got he's got amateur wrestling shoes, and he would literally walk up the wall and be able to use assert pressure that way. So he'd have his whole body weight on it, and he could do something. He got me walking again, walking up straight in '97 when I had the really bad the sciatica, so bad that I thought I'd have to retire, and it hurt. It hurt like crazy. But he got me walking straight. I remember Al Snow couldn't believe it when he saw me walk on the plane, because he'd been seeing me gnarled over for the past 3 months. So yeah, he did work on me. I don't remember the specifics of that day, but he did work on me quite a bit.
So you write in your book that he worked on you for hours, and you had asked your old pal Luna Vachon to sort of monitor catering, just to give everybody sort of in their mind's eye a glimpse of what the backstage area looks like. When you go backstage to a WWE show, usually you'll come in the back entrance where you can see the loading docks and things like that.
Yeah.
Then you'll get to a point where it feels like, okay, I've got to go left or right, and there's usually almost like a display of, all right, Gorilla is that position with an arrow to the left, and Vince's office is that position, and that's to the right, and all that sort of thing. So folks usually gather in the catering area, and in this era, they had monitors going, especially on the fallout from a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
They would be showing the most recent night show. So if you didn't get a chance to see the whole show because you were getting ready for your match or what have you, you could sit and review. So the King of the Ring pay-per-view is playing in catering. You asked Luna to give you a heads up when your match is going to be on. And as crazy as this sounds, you've never seen it, because obviously you were in it, and for a large portion of it, you weren't really all the way there.
Yeah.
So you meander in there and tell us what you remember about going into the cafeteria area, the catering area, seeing all the boys watching the match, and what happened when the match was over.
Yeah, I think I walked in there with Taker as well. He was taking really good care of me. He was the caretaker that day. That'll sell some shirts. That'll sell some shirts. Uh, well, I described it as we were watching because a lot of this stuff I was watching intently because so much of it was new to me. Like I pieced all of it except for like I think it was 41 seconds where I was unconscious. I pieced everything except that together. But that day, so much of it was new to me because I, really had my brain jogged and suffered pretty bad concussion. But my most vivid memory is I did get caught up in watching it. It was, to the point where I wasn't even aware of people around me. I can't tell you for sure what kind of, reactions they were making because I was so caught up in the match. And then when it was over, the entire room stood up and gave me and the Undertaker a standing ovation, which I had never seen in catering. Hold on. I'd only seen it a few times post-match, but certainly never post-match catering. So that was a strong indication that what we had done had certainly been different and appreciated.
I mean, a standing ovation from a videotape is just crazy. Was anyone telling you to go home? I mean, there's got to be pressure on you to, hey, that's enough, whether it's at home or it's the office or it's Vince. Like,
well, I did have a match on Raw. It was very short, and Steve took care of me with a chair shot. I guess you could argue I should not have been there at all. But I think it added a little bit to the resilience factor. It's what I was thinking about this episode. As soon as I heard about it, I thought, oh man, they pick a match I don't remember anything about. Not because of head injuries, but because it's like I considered it a good solid match, like a single up the middle, but after a storied baseball career, not too many guys are going to remember the single up the middle. They'll remember the time they struck out with the bases loaded, or they'll remember the towering shot they sent into a purple twilight sky. But I just remember it was good and solid. I knew I was struggling as a character. We had talked about this before about the cell, how it was not an instant phenomenon, and it was not the trending topic for a couple of days like it would have been if it happened in the age of social media. Instead, it was like something that had a chance to gain momentum, like a snowball rolling downhill.
yes.
But in the immediate aftermath, it was still way up at that top of the hill, and it was a pretty small snowball. It had not started to gain that momentum, and would not, I'd say, for at least another month, because I remember going on a signing that was not well attended. Not a knock on Sable and her ability to draw a bigger crowd than me at a fair, but she had a line that was 3-4 times the size of mine. So this whole legendary status and the legendary image of the match wasn't there yet. It would eventually get there, and I've said I'm lucky it wasn't on social media where it trended for a few days and then been forgotten. And instead, it was given time to grow, especially in people's minds. I remember thinking that I had never been less over in the aftermath of that match, and I knew I had to I knew I had to do something different. I knew I had to connect with an audience in a way that I had maybe flirted with. Making people laugh, making people feel for the character in a slightly different way. But because the cell was kind of like the point of no return, where I could never be that guy again who just, almost lives and breathes to make your jaw drop, I had to rely more on a few of those traits that like I said, flirted with. And the idea of creating a wrestler with a kind heart, who's a little bit naive, that was a big risk in the Attitude Era. But I think not so much in the lead up to this match, But in the lead up to the match the next month at SummerSlam, that's when I started trying some different things. But in my mindset, I once again did not feel like I belonged in that main event match. Undertaker beating me pretty decisively. I don't think people were like, "Wow, this this story has more mileage to go." So it felt like it was a main event thrown together with the two most over baby faces. Although Rock was fast approaching, breaking into that area, he was on fire. And then they had Kane and I, who were the tag team champions, and I thought we were a good, solid team. But it didn't have the fire and pizzazz of a really great main event match. It had the fire and pizzazz of a really good Raw main event match. But as far as a PPV, yeah, I wasn't sure I belonged there, and I was still trying to figure out a way to make this new Mankind click, this new version of Mankind click.
Well, it was clicking with fans. It's the third highest rating in Raw history and the highest ever for an unopposed show. It does a 5.36 rating, just absolutely obliterates Nitro. I think a lot of that is because of you, Mick. I mean, certainly.
Wait, hold on. I thought this was the pay-per-view match we're talking about.
I'm talking about the June 29th Raw, the night after.
Oh, really? Oh,
the night after was unbelievable. And fans are really intrigued to see what's happening with you. I mean, certainly they want to see what's going on with Stone Cold in the title. I mean, that's important. But everybody was talking about that crazy bump. And Kane becomes a one-day champion. Of course, the belt is back with Austin that night. But what's interesting is the night after King of the Ring, and nobody talks about this, that's the night Brawl for All started. You and I haven't spent any time talking about that before. What did you think of Brawl for All as a concept?
Oh man, I mean, it was created as a vehicle for Dr. Death to kind of just surge over everyone. But they forgot that Mark Merrow was a heck of a boxer. There were knee injuries. I think there were 2 or 3 knee injuries for guys getting knocked out in violent fashion. The only one who came out ahead, the better for was Bob Holly, because even Bart Gunn, right after he won, he was like sent to Japan. And like it was just a mess. You had guys suffering serious knockouts and then driving home.
Yeah, less than ideal, no doubt.
Less than ideal. You had guys who who did a disservice to their legacies by being in there. The whole thing was a mess.
I'm curious from your perspective, did you think there was any upside to the Brawl for All? I mean, I understand sometimes in wrestling we're just trying new things. Like we got to see what sticks and what hits. And I mean, it feels like very quickly we realized this was not a good idea.
Oh, not a good idea at all. Yeah, I mean, the upside was supposed to be the making of a new star in Dr. Death Steve Williams, but then he got knocked out by Bart Gunn, and I was there with Doc in the dressing room, and it's like trying to repair. He'd hurt his knee by getting the violent backwards knockout. You're dealing with guys with a lot of wear and tear on their knees anyway, and the physical rebuilding of Dr. Death would be a lot easier than the emotional rebuilding, because it was like he was shattered, and I was there trying to pick up the pieces for him. It was one of the saddest nights of my life, seeing somebody who I knew would never be the same. And he went back to Japan, but that aura of invincibility, and he was a tough dude, He was an All-American in both football, at least a starter on a great team, but definitely an All-American. JR could clear that up. I think he was a 2-sport All-American. And an All-American at Oklahoma, where he would join the team late after football season and he was a guy you did not mess around with, and it wasn't just his amateur credentials, but in a scrap, he would. This is where some of those legendary like pre-Haku stories came up. 4 or 5 people like boom, 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 and here he is being knocked out. And I think for whatever, Bart Gunn got more over than he was supposed to, and we never heard from him again in WWE. He did come back and then got knocked out by Butterbean, which just called into question how good Bart could have been if he got knocked out that quickly, even though Bean hit him with a punch that would have knocked a mule out. So no, there were no real winners except for Bob Holly. Bob mixed it up with Bart Gunn. Came back, he goes, that was fun, and it kind of became the dawn of the hardcore Holly era.
Why don't you think they did something with Bart? I mean, you sort of laid it out and you said, hey, in your opinion, this was a vehicle to help establish a new character in Dr. Death. He was going to be, the perceived new baddest dude on the block. He could beat all these guys in a real fight, quote unquote, real fight. Well, Bart Gunn did that, and to your point, he's sent off to Japan, and that's kind of all we do with him. It felt like an opportunity.
That Mania match had worked out differently. Maybe things would have worked out differently for Bart, but that doesn't explain why they didn't do anything with him in the immediate aftermath. Because there's a big jump from early July '98 to March, April of '99. So he was gone for long periods of time, and then he suffered that quick knockout from Butterbean. I don't know. I don't have the answer. That's where you'd have to talk to Bruce or JR, because I just wasn't privy to those conversations.
Do you remember there being a lot of hurt feelings in the locker room over Brawl for All?
Well, yeah, there were guys, who got knocked out cold, who just didn't think that type of thing could happen to them, and that was tough to deal with. At least the Godfather, when he got knocked out, the presence of mind to have his women come and help him, and he was still dancing on the way out. But it didn't do any favors for anybody, even the winner.
Let's talk a little bit about the next Raw you have, which is a taped show from State College, PA. So this is the era where we're doing a live pay-per-view on a Sunday. Right. We're doing a live Raw on a Monday, and then we're taping a Raw on Tuesday that'll air the following Monday. And this taped edition of Raw is where we see the DX parody of the Nation of Domination. That's going to go heads up with Goldberg beating Hulk Hogan in the Georgia Dome on Nitro to become the world champ. So it's a hot time, and you guys are, loaded for bear. I mean, you just obliterate Nitro, and now they respond with, we're going to make Goldberg the champ. So it's pretty stiff competition. What do you think of the Nation parody with Jason Sensation and how they pulled all that off?
Oh man, poor Jason gets written out in the retelling of it. But Jason could never could get the green card, and he's worked with me on at least a couple dozen of my events in Canada, because he just does such a spot on job of so many of the guys. And he did he didn't look like Owen, but he was like, what am I, a road sign? And even though some of the jokes are a little hokey and been told before, he goes, it must be nice when, he goes, I can get up in the morning and smell the coffee in Brazil.
That's tremendous.
So, this is one. Now when you look at the guys in blackface, 3 of them, you're like, ooh, I don't think we're supposed to do that anymore. But it wasn't meant, it was meant to be entertaining. It was meant to, it achieved its goal. It was extremely entertaining. I'm just, the blackface doesn't age well at all in today's era. But it showed off some chops for Triple H, who did a tremendous Rock video. You should have smelled what the Rock was cooking. I'm not faking. Should have smelled what the Rock was baking. Yeah, it was really well. It was really memorable, and nobody does the parodies like professional wrestling does.
So by now you know that Mick and I have spent a lot of time talking about some of these death matches and some of these bloody wars that he had. But you probably also know that that blood was intentional. You see, nobody wants to get cut accidentally, but unfortunately a lot of us do it. If you're using a cheap razor, you're getting those nicks, those cuts, that irritation. And I gotta tell you, I got pretty annoyed with that whole subscription razor concept a few years ago. I found they just kept stacking up. What I enjoy most about Henson shaving is that it doesn't feel like a gimmick. It feels old school. Seriously, just the actual blade handle itself. Dude, it's metal. It's not some cheap piece of plastic that's gonna break on you or frustrate you. This is like, I'm not saying it's gonna last a lifetime, but it feels substantial. It feels like something our grandparents would have used. And at the same time, man, you get a whole pack of these straight razors. Dude, this is old school. But here's what's cool about it, and here's why I believe that you gotta meet Henson Shaving. They're a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that's made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover. And now they're bringing that same technology and engineering to your shaving experience. You see, I've learned that razor blades are like diving boards. The longer the board, the more the wobble. The more the wobble, well, the more nicks, the more cuts, the more scrapes. You see, a bad shave isn't a blade problem, it's an extension problem. So by using aerospace grade CNC machines, Henson makes razors that extend just 0.0013 inches, which is less than the thickness of a human hair. That means a secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. It's also got a clog-free design. You see, this razor has built-in channels to evacuate the hair and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. Seriously, Henson Shaving wants the best razor, not the best razor business. Let me explain. There's no plastic. There's no subscriptions. There's no proprietary blades. There's no planned obsolescence. The Henson razor works with standard old-school dual-age blades, but it gives you that new age, that new school tech. Dude, these folks have made stuff for space. You darn right they can make stuff for your face. And once you own a Henson razor, it's only like $3 to $5 a year to replace the blades. I'm a big believer in this. I was overwhelmed with the value. Seriously, you're going to get more blades than you can imagine. In my first shave, I have to admit, I was a little intimidated. I haven't worked with a straight razor like this before, but dude, it was easy and I felt like a badass when it was done. I'm going to tell you, the design is incredible. The durability is awesome. It's super affordable. My buddy Cassio Kid came over to watch the Royal Rumble and I had told him about the razor before and I said, hey man, I got to show this to you. And I showed him the blade. I showed him the razor. It's something you got to see. I recommend it. It's the most manly thing you can do today. It's time to say no to subscriptions and say yes to a razor that will last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/Foley to pick the razor for you and use code Foley and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure you add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/Foley and use the promo code Foley. hensonshaving.com/Foley. It's a fun show, and it's also a show where we see a very interesting angle in the main event. So to set it up, we've got everybody wants a shot at Stone Cold Steve Austin and his world title. Of course, Kane is the most recent champion, and the Undertaker is right in the crosshairs of Vince McMahon, and he's very thankful, he being McMahon, for what you've done. So he's going to announce a three-way, and you guys are going to mix it up in the main event. And then when the main event comes along, they play the Undertaker's music. He's not there. They play the Undertaker's music. He's not there. And you announce that you are not willing to fight your friend Kane. That's where you draw the line. And as all this is happening, Stone Cold Steve Austin is on commentary. Well, it turns out that you do wind up wrestling Kane because he comes after you hard. Your supposed friend Kane is just all over you. And it's a pretty short match. And very quickly, Kane dispenses of you. He dominates you. That's the end, or so we think. Kane takes his mask off. It's not actually Kane. It's the Undertaker. What a nice little twist. They actually released that as an action figure a couple of years ago. One of my favorite angles, especially on a taped show. I mean, what a nice twist. I really enjoy the storytelling. What did you think of the execution of this one?
I thought it was good. Yeah. This is one of the things where so much time had gone by, I'd forgotten it happened. And I was watching the match and thinking, this is a couple of years ago. Well, man, Kane looks a little different, just a little bit, and Kane had sharper, he was a little more vascular than the Undertaker, like sharper, a little bit bigger shoulders, triceps, and so I thought he looked a little tiny bit different than Kane, but it was a great angle. It really was, and it didn't matter that the match was short because that was the element of surprise. It takes a good man to beat me, Conrad, but it does not take him very long. So.
What a great line.
It's a great line.
They're going to give you a little well-deserved time off. Both you and Mankind, or you and Steve Austin, are going to miss shows in Canada. And there's a little thing that the company tried here that didn't happen. I want to ask you what you thought about that. They were planning on doing a stadium show where the Patriots play, Foxborough Stadium.
Okay.
And they wind up canceling it due to poor ticket sales. It was just going to be
can I interject something?
Please do.
So that Undertaker Mankind match, do you have a date when that took place?
Yeah, it was in State College, PA. So I'm going to guess it was done on June 30th.
All right, that's interesting. So I actually was there I did 2 matches.
Yes.
They were quick matches, but 2 matches after the sale, and then I was sent home for 4 days. Okay, so we were thinking of doing the stadium where the Patriots play.
Yeah, and to be clear, these injuries that you've got, it's at least reported in the Observer. Contrary to reports elsewhere, he did not suffer any broken bones in the match, although his ribs were badly bruised and he had a lot of soft tissue damage, and his mouth is a mess from losing 3 bottom teeth and the dental work necessary to repair them. He hasn't been able to eat any solid food since the match. He's in a lot of pain standing up or sitting down, not to mention he has a probable concussion and a dislocated jaw. The expectations would be that he'd be back wrestling in Boston as well. Meanwhile, the Undertaker's ankle isn't getting any better. Apparently, he had a similar surgery or injury about 4 years ago, and he had surgery at that time, but he doesn't want to go through that same surgery again, feeling the pain from the operation is worse than the pain of working through floating bone chips. You're a guy who's opted out of surgery and just gutted out before. Is that something that you would adopt as a theory as well? Like, hey man, the surgery hurts worse than the pain, so let's just power through.
I think all my surgeries were scheduled well in advance so they could be part of storylines.
Right.
The hip and knee replacements were life-changing operations for me. Reduced so much pain. But, that would be the Undertaker's choice. I mean, he's a tough dude, man. He can go through more than just about anybody. So I don't know what he was feeling at that time. I don't know how he felt before and after a previous surgery, but I guess that's his call to make.
To tell you how hot the product is at the time here, we're 1 week removed from Goldberg becoming the man. But Raw is live. And so because Raw is live, Raw does a 4.65 rating. Nitro does a 4.46. So even with the big Nitro Dome show just 6 days prior or 7 days prior, Goldberg winning the world title, fans are still more inclined to watch a Monday Night Raw than a Nitro. I mean, that right there tells the story. You guys are just hotter than ever.
Well, what's funny is in the retelling of the Monday Night Wars, a lot of credit is given to the night that Mankind defeated The Rock. But actually, our first win was in the build-up to the Dude Austin match, I think in April. And I think we were going back and forth ever since then. Does that sound correct? Because I
Yeah.
know that was
So.
a masterful 2-hour show. They teased the match. I ruined the show. I'll be the first to admit that I ruined it. It was meant to be Austin and McMahon, and then I interfered, and it left a bad taste in people's mouths. But we won that show. I believe that was the one that broke the 83 week streak. That's my recollection at least. And then we were trading wins back and forth before Mankind and The Rock tied it up in Worcester, Mass. So that's really interesting to know that it really was it became about how good the shows can be. And this is when I thought WWE was at its absolute strongest in putting together really compelling 2-hour and later 3-hour, soap operas.
You've heard Mick talk about it for years. AG1, Mick and I absolutely love AG1. We start each and every day with a simple scoop. That's it. That's all we need. One single scoop and a cup of water. And buddy, we're getting 75 different high quality ingredients. It's going to hook you up and give you all the key daily nutrients, and it's going to go ahead and support everything you need. Your energy, your focus, your strength, your clarity. This is just a no-brainer to me. Think of it as like your foundational nutrition product. Listen, we all get busy and we wind up, well, I didn't want to do this for lunch, but I don't feel like I have an option, or, well, I know I need to. Dude, this is easy. Just one scoop every single day. You're making sure you're taking care of your most valuable asset. You cover all your bases. You're looking for better gut health. You want to boost in energy. You want to support that immune system. Maybe you hate taking pills or vitamins. Maybe you just want a supplement that tastes good. I drink mine every single morning. My wife does hers before she even does her coffee. It makes her feel unstoppable on her way to the gym, and I think it gives me more focus at work. I feel like I'm more productive, and I don't have that crash in the afternoon. I feel like I'm more productive all day long. We started this back even before the pandemic started. My wife did. But when the pandemic started, man, she had me start doing it. We've done it every day since. We are huge fans. I think you will be too. Even our daughters are into it now. Morgan's actually taking some down to Tuscaloosa with her. With every single serving, you're setting yourself up for success. I just can't recommend it enough. By the way, you don't have to take our word for this. Just go look up their reviews. These cats have thousands of 5-star reviews. It's the real deal. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go right now to drinkag1.com/Foley. That's drinkag1.com/Foley. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. The important thing that we should note here is that you are on the heels of this giant opportunity at King of the Ring. You're certainly working hurt, and maybe that's a reason, but you're still positioned in tag matches. Like, you're going to beat the New Age Outlaws along with your pal Kane to win the tag titles in 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Listen, this is going to be the second time you've won the tag titles. The first time you were Dude Love with Steve Austin. Now you're winning it with Kane. So when you do have these little tag title opportunities, they're successful and they're with big stars. But
Conrad, do you count the Cactus Jack Chainsaw Charlie victory at WrestleMania?
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's right.
Or do you say that by virtue of the fact that we deposited the Outlaws in the wrong dumpster, that it was never a victory to begin with?
Yeah, let's count it. We'll say three times.
Okay.
In your opinion, though, did you, in your mind's eye, did you ever consider yourself a tag team wrestler? I mean, I think most people listening to this associate you with a singles wrestler, but you had all these great moments as a tag team, whether it was in WCW.
Yeah. Going all the way back to gorgeous Gary Young being my partner in World Class, and then Abdullah the Butcher being my partner in WCW, and from fall of '91, for probably about a 6-7 month period. I thought we were a really good tag team. I enjoyed tag teaming, but I needed the pressure of the singles match so that I did not sit back and rely on my partner more than I should.
Well, you're not getting much time off here because even though you've won the tag titles on this show, you're going to wrestle again later that night. DX is complaining about the fact they lost the titles, and now Austin and Taker have to be the referees for the match. I mean, here you are with King of the Ring, not too far in the rearview mirror. I mean, 10 days or so.
Yeah.
And you're wrestling twice in a night. They're asking an awful lot of you here, Mick.
I don't think anyone would have questioned if I had gone home for 4 months.
No.
Yeah, so I was back in 4 days and part of the mix right away. I have to think Kane was helping me out quite a bit there. I mean, I don't remember a lot about what I start remembering in detail, and this is just, I just want to point out, it's my memory problems are short term, not long term. So the reason I can't remember this is, again, it's like a solid single up the middle
Right.
that no good hitter is going to remember. So I'm making contact. Like, I'm not embarrassing myself in these matches, but they're just they can't compete with all the really great and really bad memories that are at the forefront of, I think, any athlete or any performer's minds. They only remember the really good and the really bad, and the rest kind of gets mixed up in a jumble in the middle there. But they were good, and I was not embarrassing myself. I was counting on Kane, and he came through. And I thought visually we looked good as a tag team. We had Paul Bearer as our partner. And it would not be until SummerSlam with the kind of pseudo babyface turn that I started remembering everything that followed.
Let's mention that there's a nice little sub story, if you will, underneath these tag team affairs, where all of a sudden it feels like Kane might be working with the Undertaker. They've been these long enemies and rivals, and these brothers aren't getting along. But here there's a couple of moments where it feels like, wait a minute, are they working together? So that leads us to the next day. You guys are going to tape Raw in Bethlehem. This is going to be the go home Raw for Fully Loaded. And the storyline is that Vince is trying to figure out, are Kane and the Undertaker forming a secret alliance? Vince is really helping this story along and just fantastic. Taker's going to chokeslam Vince. Vince is going to punish him by putting him in a handicap match against you and Kane later in the night. Then it changes to having Austin in the match instead. And we know that Taker's still banged up from, well, the ankle injury even before King of the Ring. And the show ends with Austin giving Mankind the stunner. Kane's going to stop the count. Austin's going to escape a chokeslam with a low blow. Undertaker swings at Austin but hits Kane. There's the DQ. And now we get chair shots from Austin for Kane, Mankind, and the Undertaker. And now the story is, did the Undertaker mean to hit Kane, or did he mean to hit Austin? And we're building towards this Fully Loaded pay-per-view, but this almost feels like it's just to get us to SummerSlam. The big story being Stone Cold Steve Austin versus the Undertaker. That's going to be a babyface main event opportunity. What did you think about working matches where it was babyface versus babyface? Is that more challenging than a traditional heel babyface match?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little more challenging, but we've seen that some of the biggest Mania main events in history have been babyface matches. It's all about the interest. That's, there are some people I really respect who say for a heel, it's all about the heat. And I'm like, no, it's about the interest. It's about the interest because I remember being an independent and a guy came out as a Pink Panther, not the Pink Panther, but in a Pink Panther outfit. And he was able to get a lot of boos and jeers simply because of the one-dimensional character. It's harder. It's more difficult to get interest, but it's more lasting. So, I think if you went through history, you could find that it wasn't always the heel with the most heat who drew the biggest houses. Although back in the day when, people believed there'd be a much bigger correlation between heat and drawing. But I think in the modern day, it's about interest. And if the interest is there, the fans will choose who they want to cheer for, and sometimes it'll be a 50-50 split. And that was a new adventure, for all the men and women who participated, to try to find a way to make those matches just as compelling as the ones that had the traditional good guy and bad guy.
Well, let's talk about Fully Loaded. We're finally here. As great as this show is, and there's a lot of great matches on this show, I think the thing that most people remember about it, at least guys my age, was, boy, that bikini contest with Sable and Miss Jackie. We did have a little wardrobe malfunction with Miss Jackie, but those handprints were legendary in Huntsville, Alabama in 1998. Let me tell you. What did you think of that? Does that have a place in wrestling? Were you guys pushing the envelope? Was that just what it was?
Yeah, I guess it did have a place. I mean, Sable was super over. I saw her ex, Mark Merrow, just a couple weeks ago, and wrote a nice little article about, how, I was pretty negative about Mark during my time in WWE, but that was only based on him having not even the good fortune, but the good business sense to become the first ever guaranteed contract. And he signed that about 5 days after I did. I shouldn't have been mad at Mark. I should have been mad at Vince, but well, I was able to use that frustration in a positive way. And likewise, the only thing Sable ever did to me was get over bigger than I was. that hurt. But no, Sable should be in the Hall of Fame. I have to. I'm guessing that Brock, the time is not right. The timing's not right. But she was super over. And though she didn't come from a wrestling background, she, I don't know if she accounted for herself just fine and really well in that match with Luna and Mark and Goldust at WrestleMania 1998. But yeah, I think I don't know if there's a place now for it, but I mean, we were pushing the envelope. And, in fairness, there were handprints covering the naughty bits. So I was okay.
Oh my goodness, the naughty bits. That's hilarious. Let's talk about the actual wrestling on the show. Rock and Hunter are going to do a 30-minute Iron Man match. And I think a lot of people, with the benefit of hindsight, can look back and see these guys are really who's going to be the next guy to move into that main event status.
Right.
At this point, it's been, the Undertaker, and it's been Kane, and it's been Mankind, and it's been Stone Cold. But who's next? Is it going to be Rock? Is it going to be Hunter? We also see a dungeon match. I'm curious if you saw that. The Owen Hart, Ken Shamrock match. Dan Severn is the referee. It's in the famed Stu Hart dungeon. What a fun idea.
It was a great idea. I had no idea how small the dungeon was.
Right.
There was barely enough room for a ring in there. And I don't even know if they had a ring in there. Beyond, you can tell me if they did. But Owen was utilizing the lay of the land. He was using the ceiling. It was interesting, because Ken was a big deal. He was a big deal, and the only way Owen would have a chance is, he had the home field advantage there.
Let's also mention that there's a storyline going throughout the show that the Undertaker has not yet shown up to the building, and it's seemingly unknown if he's even going to be here. And Paul Bearer comes out and even calls the Undertaker a coward. And this is one of those, I don't know, show long threads that we normally only saw on TV, but here we get it on pay-per-view. I kind of like that. I mean, it makes it feel more of like what we bought. Like, we love Monday Night Raw. We want more of that, maybe with longer matches and no commercial breaks and that sort of thing, as opposed to, hey, if you like what we're doing on Monday, tune in on Sunday. We're doing something totally different. What do you think about show long threads like that inside of pay-per-view?
I love them because not every match is a sizzler. And I think it's something, 3 hours can be a long time to keep people emotionally invested, especially if you have, you feel like the match you came to watch doesn't happen for 2.5 hours. So I liked it. in trying to find a little bit out about, the time period. Usually I come in completely blind to these things and just give me my feelings. But this was a time period I did not remember much about the match, so I did a little, background. And there was one good comment somebody had. It said, it used to be that the Raws built up to the pay-per-views, but recently it feels like the pay-per-views are building up to the Raws. Because Monday night had become such destination programming, and we had WCW hot on our heels that when we were given the chance to have our own show, I'm not sure that we were the best, as good as we were on Monday nights when we had someone breathing down our necks. We still had great matches where we needed to have them, but I'm all for the threat. I've got a sneeze coming up.
You believe the competition brought out the best in Vince McMahon?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. So
Well,
that within a year, I think I've told this story, and I'm not trying to disparage the legend of Eddie Guerrero, but Eddie Guerrero did a 4-minute straight through karaoke version of Shameless by Garth Brooks. And when I talked to Barry Bloom, I was like, Barry, geez, I knew Vince never liked more than a minute of a talking head.
right.
And I said, wow, Vince must have really been upset. I wouldn't want to have been the producer on that segment. And Barry said Vince did produce that segment. And it was fun. It was fun to see Eddie do, sing Shameless in a Texas honky tonk and building up a match with Steve. But that's an example of something that never would have happened. I remember I would cut pretty good backstage promos. They're like, no, I got to do it over again. I was like, why? You went a minute 7. So the thought was that people wouldn't listen to a talking head, no matter what they were saying, for more than a minute, especially if it was pre-taped.
Let's talk about another little swerve that we do on this pay-per-view. The New Age Outlaws are going to come out and challenge you and Kane to a tag team title match the next night on Raw, and then there's a big brawl. And, of course, this is going to be a swerve. Later in the show, again, Undertaker has not shown up. He's not here for the main event, which is supposed to be Stone Cold and The Undertaker teaming up to take on Mankind and Kane for the tag titles. But at this point, we've still not seen The Undertaker. And I love this little bit here. Vince McMahon comes out with some of his favorite pals, Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, and Sergeant Slaughter. And they're still talking about the fact that The Undertaker is apparently a no-show. So McMahon announces that it is his responsibility as the promoter to remind everyone who bought tickets and is watching on pay-per-view that this is card subject to change, but don't fear, it is his responsibility to have a suitable replacement. And of course, Bruce Pritchard has always told us the old rule of thumb is the replacement has to be better than the original announcement. So with The Undertaker sidelined, don't fear, fans. We still have a main event tonight, and teaming with Steve Austin. In the absence of The Undertaker, we have a suitable replacement in the Brooklyn Brawler. What a fantastic moment on pay-per-view. It feels like a Monday Night Raw, and I love it so much.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I completely forgot about that, but that was that was fun.
And it's time for our main event. It's Undertaker and Steve Austin. They're going to be wrestling Mankind and Kane. They get 17 minutes and 28 seconds. Meltzer would say it was a better than average match, but below the standards of most WWF pay-per-view main events. As a reminder, in this Attitude Era, if you will, and The Undertaker, if you're watching on YouTube, did in fact show up. It wasn't the Brooklyn Brawler. But in this era, WCW had the reputation for having a really strong undercard, but really weak main events. Meanwhile, the WWF would often be written about in the Torch and the Observer as having a relatively weak or thrown together undercard, but an incredibly strong main event. And Meltzer would say that this one maybe wasn't quite up to that standard. And honestly, I don't know how it could have been given what happened just a few weeks prior. In the end, he gave it 2 3/4 stars. It's heavy on story. And when it's all over with, The Undertaker and Steve Austin are the tag team champions. You and Kane were not tag champs for a very long time, but What a match it was. All the star power in one ring. What do you remember about this one? I know you watched it back recently for the first time in a long time.
No, I actually did not.
Oh, I thought you were saying you watched it a few years ago.
I don't. If I did, it did not make a huge impact on me. I thought it was. I mean, I thought it was good when it happened. Not great, but good. I would have given it an extra quarter of a star. I would have put it up there at 3, I think. But we were working through injuries, and it was clearly designed to get the Undertaker and Steve Austin SummerSlam main event going. And like I said, on a very real level, I was searching for ways to stay relevant, searching for ways to connect with the crowd that didn't include making their jaws drop every week or every night on the on the road. So I was more concerned with how I was going to keep my head above water than I was about the buy rate or the star rating. I was really I felt like I had to do something major in a major way in a major hurry.
I'll tell you what's interesting to me about this match is it almost feels like after this monumental show at King of the Ring. I mean, what a moment it was. When Kane wins the world title, nobody thought Steve Austin was losing that thing. But more importantly, what we're still talking about 25 years later, an incredible King of the Ring. Now we're headed towards SummerSlam at Madison Square Garden. We've got Stone Cold Steve Austin going to be wrestling The Undertaker. What a huge match that's going to be. 2 of the biggest stars. And this is just kind of there. It feels like a transition to get us from June to August. And we tell a story that we almost told the exact same story in 1997, where all of a sudden where Steve Austin is in a big feud with Bret Hart. Bret's going to be out. I guess the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Somehow he and Shawn Michaels become tag team champions. But with Bret on the outs at King of the Ring, Steve winds up wrestling Shawn, his own tag team partner and co-tag team champion at King of the Ring. We do that same story again in 98, but with The Undertaker. So it feels like as excited as you would have been, hey, I'm in a pay-per-view main event. It's really not about the match. It's about the other 2 guys that you're wrestling. Their story, not your story.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking about back to what a simpler time it was when they did, was it 5 pay-per-views a year?
Oh, yeah. They used to do 4 back then.
4, and you really had a chance. You wouldn't. This would not have been a match that would be a main event on a pay-per-view. Back in those days, it made storytelling much simpler to follow. I really liked it. I understand the business model had changed, and back in those days, not only did you only get the 4 pay-per-views, but you rarely got a competitive match on TV. So things have changed enormously. So all of a sudden now you're competing with your own really good matches on TV, and the matches that WCW is having, really good matches on TV, and it put a lot of pressure on the on the writers, on the main characters, the wrestlers, to come to make their stuff different and believable. But it was a challenge. It was a major challenge. SmackDown, I believe, had just started or was about to start. Would add another 2 hours. Raw was going to go to 3 hours. And I give a lot of credit to the creative team for bringing out the best in so many of us under really, really difficult circumstances.
It's a fun story. Austin is finally needing desperately Undertaker to tag in. He's trying to look for that elusive hot tag. Undertaker is very hesitant, very reluctant. Finally, he does. He clears house, nails the tombstone on Kane, grabs both tag belts after the pin, and he's out of there. Austin's left to his own devices. So they're the tag champs, but maybe it wasn't his original plan. Something that's written about in the Observer, quote, Undertaker hit the 4,000th DDT on this card. Now, I wanted to ask you about that because we've seen and heard from a lot of folks, including our pal Jim Ross, who remind everybody that, boy, the DDT used to be a finisher and now it's a transition. Do you think the DDT, I mean, I know these days people talk about the super kick that way, but in the 90s, do you think they did that to the DDT? Like as a community, it went from being this really impactful move that everybody loved but it was used once a card to now there's 12 a match.
Yeah, and I was part of overdoing that because especially when you're calling matches on the fly,
Right.
it's such a great cutoff. I mean, guys, I still I'm a stickler for the back body drop meaning something just so it gives us a reason to bend down and get caught. Without any back body drops, there's no reason to bend down and get caught with a transition move. But it was really either the neck breaker or the DDT that was the best transition. From heat to comeback or from heat to doubling down. We overdid it, and we need someone to step up once in a while and go, hey guys, you got to take this one off the menu. Yeah, we definitely overdid it for a while.
This episode is, in fact, brought to you by PROWRESTLINGCRATE.com. These are monthly mystery crates for diehard wrestling fans, and if you're looking for exclusive wrestling collectibles every month, sign up for them at PROWRESTLINGCRATE.com. Boxes ship worldwide and include brand new merchandise from AEW wrestlers and WWE legends. Every premium box includes 2 shirts, 1 micro brawler figure, 1 autographed 8x10, 1 lapel pin, and more. Plans start at $9.95 and are the perfect gift for any wrestling fan. Visit PROWRESTLINGCRATE.com today. Let's do a few questions, then we'll put a bow on this one. Instagram, a wrestling historian, says, can you please tell us a funny story about Kane? Thanks in advance.
A funny story about Kane. Man, I hate to go to that same well where I talked about Paul Bearer and Kane and I getting thrown out of the Catholic Youth Center. Have I told that one here yet?
Yes, you have. About the suck it story. Yeah.
It's not a funny story about Kane, but he always had a thick, usually a really thick nonfiction book that he was working on at all times. So I know that there were people who knocked him, just the idea of him going into politics. And I remember writing years before he went into politics that was going to be his calling, that he was 6'6", you couldn't debate him because he knew just about everything. He had used his time in the air and in the dressing rooms to get an education that was really second to none. That's not funny in the least, but I'm coming up blank, brother, when it comes to funny stories about Kane. I'm really sorry.
Well, let me tee you up one. You were once getting in the zone for a match, and you're walking around.
Oh yeah. I was getting in the zone for my match in 2006 and WrestleMania, and because there's so much activity taking place backstage, they had erected tents. I was hesitant to say erected because I know Grillo, he likes to get. He's like Joey on Friends giggling when Ross says Homo erectus. But there were tents back there, and man, I felt a lot of pressure, and so I was in that tent area, and apparently I was listening to music, a unique choice of music, and Kane told me the next day he walked in and he saw me rocking back and forth like entering a different zone, and he walked right out, and he goes, what the hell were you listening to anyway? And I gave him my old battered yellow Sony Walkman that my children had outright refused for a Christmas gift the previous year, and I put on the music, and it's like the first 30 seconds of Winter by Tori Amos, and Kane takes off the headphones, hands them back to me, looks me in the eye, and goes, remind me not to fuck with you.
What a great line. And maybe our first F-bomb here on Foley Is
Or
Pod.
second one, yeah, but well worth it. Uncle Conrad, can I plug one more thing?
Please do.
All right, today through the 31st of July, it's Christmas in July. Go to cameo.com/Mick Foley. 25% is already taken off the top, but even more importantly, if you wait another week, in sometime in that first week of August, we will be celebrating my 5,000th review. That's a landmark moment, over twice of what any other wrestler or athlete of any kind on the planet has piled up, and we'll be celebrating that by taking 50% off of my cameos for 50 hours, but I don't know the code yet. So somewhere around August 3rd, August 4th, it'll be on my socials. I'll let people know what the code is. And we hope to hear from a lot of you, because I enjoy doing these videos, and they're pretty reasonably priced with the 50% off.
Can't wait. I know you're going to do a great job. I see all those reviews pouring in, and every now and again I get a chance to check out some of the videos. If you're on the fence, go check it out. You'll see that this is not a cameo like any other. Mick really puts his heart and soul into these. He puts on a performance for you, and he's not doing it for a sold out crowd. He's doing it for you or your loved one. Go check it out on Cameo. You'll be glad you did. One or two more here. Dylan Leahy says, did you see the Kane character be a one-off, or did you imagine he would have longevity in that character?
I did not see it as being a one-off. I did not think that he would find so many ways to tweak the character that it would make it one of the great characters of the Attitude Era. He or they found ways to keep it new. So I don't think anybody thought, this got a 20-year shelf life when we saw it, but I think we thought it could be impactful for a couple of years.
Matt wants to know, if Paul Bearer is Kane's father and you referred to Paul as Uncle Paul, how does it feel being the first unofficial cousins to be WWE Tag Team Champions? Cousins, how about that?
That is a great question. And are we sure that we were the first cousins? That sounds like to be WWE champions. Feels good, man. Feels really good, but I'm not sure that's historically correct.
One last one. Matt wants to know, Kane or Al Snow, who was a better tag team partner?
Well, in some ways, Al was, because the difference in our reactions was so great that it really made me feel good about myself. Al's expense. Like when I teamed up with The Rock or Kane, we get the better overall response. But as far as there being a glaring difference between this guy and that guy, that Al Snow thing was good for my soul.
Well, we will be discussing the rest of your 1998 later this year here on Foley Is Pod. And along the way, we're going to talk about two of my favorite topics I've wanted to talk about with you, including Lost in Cleveland and Halloween Havoc 1993. It's happening right here on Foley Is Pod. You can get all these shows early and ad-free over at adfreeshows.com. And we just debuted a brand new show there called Making the Town with our pal, the Blue Meanie. We're taking a deep dive into some of the more famous arenas in professional wrestling history, and what better building to start with than the former ECW arena. It's available now at adfreeshows.com. Also want to mention, if your business targets men 25 to 54 years old, no better place to advertise than right here with us on Foley Is Pod. You've heard some of the same companies for the entire year. Well, how is that? Well, because it really works. We've got a super targeted audience, and if you're looking for men 25 to 54, we got them. Find out how easy it is at advertisewithfoley.com. Want to be sure to plug our YouTube as well. It's one thing to hear the show, it's another to see it. This is a totally different podcast from everything else on our network. It looks and feels a lot different. It's Foley on YouTube.com. And if you're looking to look a little different, can I recommend FoleyIsPodShirts.com? We've got some new fun shirts over there. Of course, you see the Mr. In Your House shirt, the Hardcore Legend. How about Cactus Jack's Steakhouse and Saloon? Yeah. And who could forget the Phantom Balls? All available now. Never forget those Phantom Balls at FoleyIsPodShirts.com. Be sure to check out Mick on Cameo. And hey, if you're in Raleigh, what are you waiting for, man? Get in the car. Come to GalaxyCon. See Mick this weekend. Mick, I can't thank you enough for the time today. This was so much fun. I know that 1998, especially June and July, maybe a little bit of a blur, but we sure do appreciate all the memories, man, just 25 years later.
Thank you. Before I go, can I pose a question for our viewers and listeners? Even the viewers, the listeners may be aware that I'm in the transition stage here from short to long on the hair.
I love it.
Should I, let's just put it there, should I go back short or should I continue to trek? One last try, one last real try to see if Mother Nature will cooperate with me in a way she did not 5 years ago.
Is that, I mean, listen, I hate to put you on the spot like this, but your hair is awfully dark, Mick. Do you have any hair?
No, because you can see a little salt and pepper coming in here and there, depending on how the light is. I'm just so grateful that I took the gamble that fans would accept that a man in his mid to late 50s did not have jet black beard. I feel so much better coming to you with the natural beard than I would with the jet black beard. But as far as the hair, no dyeing whatsoever. But I'm seeing little sprinkles coming in, and I'm guessing I got about 5 to 8 more years as a sultry brunette before I become the distinguished salt and pepper guy.
Well, let's put it to a poll. Go check us out. Foley Is Pod on Twitter. We'll throw a poll up. Do you want Mick with the short hair or the long hair? We'll talk about the results on the next Foley Is Pod. If you haven't already, go hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, Foley on YouTube.com, and we'll see you sooner rather than later right here on Foley Is Pod.
Have a nice day.
Hey guys, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Need to call a timeout real quick here. I wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my world listeners for a while now. It's about all the incredible things happening over on adfreeshows.com.
The debut of Tuesday with the Taskmaster is here, exclusively on Ad-Free Shows. Kevin Sullivan shares stories of his 50-plus years in the business, including the night the business changed forever.
The night he turned heel, he stayed at my house. His agent came. I had a 3-bedroom house at the time on the beach, and I wouldn't let the agent have a room. I gave Hulk a room, and we didn't leave till the first match was in the ring. We got in his limo and drove down. I was so afraid someone was going to change his mind, and I've heard a lot of things that it might have been Sting, it might have been Big V. I didn't have a second choice. It had to be Hulk.
On a new edition of The False Finish, Conrad is joined by none other than Glacier, as he breaks down how the Glacier character came to be and the memorable vignettes leading up to his debut.
I enjoyed doing the vignettes. I felt like it was a chance for me to show off that martial arts side that I'd had, and it was something I was very passionate about. And now, my two loves of pro wrestling and martial arts were being combined together. So I was all in.
Hey, that's just a small taste of what Ad-Free Shows has waiting for you, including a brand new perk, getting to join in on the live recordings of the shows with 4 levels to choose from. See for yourself why Ad-Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at adfreeshows.com. That's right, sign up today at adfreeshows.com.